Hello everyone, we're on chapter 10. I just wanted to finish talking about paragraphs 3 and 4. So 3 and 4 we're just basically talking about how naive realism leads to a metaphysical conception of morality, and he was just pointing out the two possible directions that a metaphysical realism theory tries to explain their morality, and that is either they do it by basing it on purely mechanical necessity, or basing it on that we're following out just the will of a higher being such as God. I wanted to point out an important point in paragraph 4 where he says, "To this kind of dualist, the moral laws appear to be dictated by the absolute, and all that man has to do is use his intelligence to find out the decisions of the absolute being and then carry them out." And he continues on, "Earthly morality is the manifestation of the extra-human world order. It is not man that matters in this moral order, but the being itself, that is, the extra-human entity. Man shall do as this being wills." So for Steiner, this being is what, for these people, this being is what matters, following their will. And Steiner doesn't agree with that. And we're going to move on to paragraph 5. And it'll cover more about this. Metaphysical as well as naive realism, consistently followed out, must deny freedom for one and the same reason. They both see man as doing no more than putting into effect or carrying out principles forced upon him by necessity. Naive realism destroys freedom by subjecting man to the authority of a perceptible being, or of one conceived on the analogy of a perceptible being, or eventually to the authority of the abstract inner voice which it interprets as conscience. The metaphysician, who merely infers the extra-human reality, cannot acknowledge freedom because he sees man as being determined mechanically or morally by a being in itself. And paragraph 5 is summarized as follows: "Metaphysics and naive realism both deny freedom for the same reason. They see humans doing no more than putting into effect principles forced upon him by necessity, by either subjecting one to the authority of an abstract inner voice known as conscience, or by a spiritual being usually known as God." And so the main point paragraph is just basically summarizing 3 and 4, and it's basically for these two theories of knowledge, if you follow them out on their concept of morality, it doesn't make sense, and they both deny freedom for the same reason, and basically you're just following orders, and that's why you're a moral being. And for Steiner, morality cannot be about just merely following orders. The highest level of morality, he argues, is that of freedom. And so that's what he's pointing out as well, is just that these theories, just for them, freedom is not a possibility. So we're going to move on to paragraph 6. Monism will have to recognize that naive realism is partially justified because it recognizes the justification of the world of percepts. Whoever is incapable of producing moral ideas through intuition must accept them from others. Insofar as a man receives his moral principles from without, he is in fact unfree. But monism attaches as much significance to the idea as to the percept. The idea, however, can come to manifestation in the human individual. Insofar as man follows the impulses coming from this side, he feels himself to be free. But monism denies all justification to metaphysics, which merely draws inferences, and consequently also to the impulses of action, which are derived from so-called beings in themselves. According to the monistic view, man may act unfreely when he obeys some perceptible external compulsion. He can act freely when he obeys none but himself. Monism cannot recognize any unconscious compulsion hidden behind percept and concept. If anyone asserts that the action of a fellow man is done unfreely, then he must identify the thing or the person or the institution within the perceptual world that has caused the person to act. And if he bases his assertion upon causes of action lying outside the world that is real to the senses and the spirit, then monism can take no notice of it. In paragraph 6 is summarized as follows. For monism, a human acts unfreely when he obeys some perceptible external compulsion. He acts freely when he follows his own will. Monism does not recognize any unconscious compulsion hidden behind percept and concept. You can only follow an external percept or an internal concept. Okay, so with this paragraph, Steiner points out that moral ideas need to be gained from within, and if you're getting them from without, you are considered unfree. But for his view, he attaches equal significance to the idea as to the percept. But for Steiner's view, they deny the justifications that metaphysics does, because metaphysics tends to do a lot of inferring, and that he does not see as justified. So that's mainly what he is pointing in this paragraph as well. So we're just going to move on to paragraph 7. According to the monistic view, then, man's action is partly unfree, partly free. He finds himself to be unfree in the world of percepts, and he realizes within himself the free spirit. And 7 is summarized as follows. For monism, an individual's action is partly free and unfree. Within, he realizes himself as a free spirit. In the world of percepts, he finds himself unfree. So this paragraph basically sums up the few paragraphs that he's been talking about. So it's in the world of ideas, that is where we find ourselves as free beings, with, in the world of ideas. And in the world of percepts, he considers us unfree, because if we're just acting based on external things, that makes us unfree, because it really has to come from within. And as he mentioned, humans are dual beings. We have this inner world and we have this world of percepts, and so that's why we are at times free and unfree. And he's just recognizing the reality of that, that we are these beings that have an inner world, but we also live in this material world, and this is really the reality, is that we are going to be free to some degree, and we're not going to be unfree. So that's all we're going to cover for today. If you have any questions, just send me a message. Have a good day. Bye.